Hi folks, Giles here. Just to say that this month on YouTube, I'm afraid we're audio only due to some gremlins. We'll be back on video next month. Enjoy the show. Hi folks, and welcome to April's Aches and Games Monthly, a regular check-in between two slightly older British friends talking life, gaming, and basically whatever else comes to mind. We've got an excellent show for you this month, and as always, we'll be sharing what we've been doing, playing, including Lost Records Bloom and Rage Tape 1, which was our game of the month. Plus, we'll be chatting about our highlights from the month's gaming news. And if we remember to drop it in, we'll have our quick reactions from the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct that's coming just before we record, just after we record, before we drop, very unhelpfully. Before we jump in, I'll edit that. Remember, we'd love to hear from you. So please come and say hi on all our socials. We're at Aches and Games on most things. Hop on our Xbox page. Oh my god, this is a good start, isn't it? Hop on our Facebook page or email us. I'm persevering at achesandgamespod@gmail.com. It's why you tune in, listeners. It's for the professionalism. I'm Giles Nicholson, Giles at West on various socials, Xbox and PS5. And joining me, as always, no doubt shaking his head internally at my unprofessional intro, is my good friend James Hopes. James, can you save us?
Yeah, at least you got your name right. That's a bonus. Not much else. But I'm also waiting for you to say 1 month, we've got a really underwhelming show for you tonight, but you never have. It's always packed or exciting or excellent, so awesome. Sets up a very high bar for us to fail to meet. Anyway, yes, I'm James, Giles' friend from school and the olden days, and I do a lot of stuff these days. Do the website, do Facebook, bit of TikTok, other bits and pieces, and You Have to Laugh at social media and James Boy 1978 on PlayStation Network. Feel free to add me or not, as my notifications continue to pop up on my phone despite it being on Do Not Disturb. That's me, Giles. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good, thank you. Pretty well. We had a fun month. It was birthday month for me, so did a few things, including seeing you guys, which was very nice. So we had a nice night out, didn't we? Went to eat some wings. What did you think, James? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, much better than expected. I wasn't looking forward to the wings because I don't like wings, and I tolerate the company, but I don't like the wings at all. But both were better than expected, which is handy. So I don't know if you've been there before for Wings on Wednesday, but you can have 3 different types of wings. You can either have proper wings, so you can have sort of broccoli wings, because obviously broccolis have wings, or you can have cauliflower broccoli. Which broccoli wings? How ridiculous! Cauliflower wings. Not that it matters, they're sold out by the time I went to order them. And the final option is some kind of vegan thing covered in some kind of sauce. Then you get shorts of sauces. You get 10 wings for the first course, and then if you want more, they bring another 5, and they keep bringing 5 until you can't eat anymore or the place closes. And I managed about 15, I think, and that was enough. The vegan ones I thought were horrific. I thought they might have been better because I don't like meat on bones. Can't be doing with bones, too much effort. But the vegan ones didn't have any bones, but they also didn't have any texture or consistency or flavour, in my opinion. So there we go. So next time I'll stick with the chicken bone fiasco. But like I said, company great. There's 4 of us, all boys, chatting about boy stuff and gaming and girls and whatever boys talk about these days, boy bands and fun stuff. So good night, I enjoyed it. And we saw each other again, didn't we? We've seen each other twice this month, which is probably... Do you not remember?
Oh yeah, that was after the last recording.
Yes.
I just referred to the notes, yeah. That was also really nice.
Yes, it was, thank you. So that was literally after the day the last one dropped. That evening we went out and had a nice Indian in our local Indian restaurant. Nearly said nice Indian in our local Chinese restaurant, which made no sense at all. But our local Indian restaurant was just a walk away from our house, called Zika. And they prepare the food, which is quite nice, but then they come out with some dry ice, which comes out of the glass stuff, and they put it on the table in front of you so you can't see each other for a while, and cough and splatter before you eat the food, and it's very pleasant. It's a really good night, good company again. So twice in a month is probably the most we see each other in a short space of time since we lived together.
Indeed, yeah. We started the podcast partly because it was a nice chance to make sure that we spoke to each other at least once a month. And now we're seeing each other so often. It feels redundant, doesn't it?
That counts as a podcast.
Hopefully, hopefully not. And no, it was very nice, as you say. Good to see Sarah as well the first time, and good to, like you said, see the boys. Although your recollection of the Wings night is slightly different to mine. You're like talking about boy stuff. My recollection is we were all talking about how old and stressed we were, which again feels quite on point for the podcast, but not
We're
quite
talking about old boy stuff.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, things have definitely changed over the years, but still nice to get together.
And also gave you a chance to look around our house, didn't it? Because you missed out on Christmas, because you were told it. So you had a chance to look at the extension this time around and were suitably impressed, obviously.
Fine, you would say. No, indeed we were. Does this mean that you're actually going to stop and just settle and just keep it how it is for a bit, James?
Well, as you know, Jill, we're still doing the bathroom, aren't we? We're doing the ensuite and the bathroom renovations. And that's been going okay. It's meant to be a 3-week project. We're in week 5 now, so it's progressing smoothly. We had everything knocked out. We had a new walls built, and the bath is fitted now. Our friend Craig, who also went to school with us, convinced me to get a jetted bath rather than a normal bath. So the jetted bath is in. It's really wide. It's like an outdoor hot tub, but indoors, and obviously less sociable because you wouldn't feel right inviting your friends around to sit in your bath, whereas you might do with a hot tub. So it's kind of a compromise. Sarah didn't want me to have a hot tub in the garden because we thought we'd never use it enough, and it's quite expensive. So a jetted bath is a nice compromise. And I can use it after 5-a-side football to recover my aching limbs. And so it's coming, hopefully a couple of weeks away. It's already plastered. He's got to tile it now, do the flooring, finish it off. Happy days. So much looking forward to that. And then that'll be it forever. No more moving, no more building, no more decorating. We're just going to live in squalor for the next 20 years until it gradually decays around us.
Good, you've earned it with all the work you guys have been doing. I've not been doing any work apart from Wings Night. I mentioned birthday. On my birthday itself, we went out to a new restaurant, which is a bit posher than our usual choice, called the Braywood, between Wakeham and Maidenhead, and had a set menu, so it was reasonably affordable, but still very impressive, very delicious, very sort of creative. The service was not too fussy, which was quite nice. They weren't too pretentious. But yeah, if you go there on a normal menu, you're likely to spend upwards of sort of 200 to 300 quid for 2 of you, which we definitely would not do. But their set menu was like £39 for 2 courses or £45 for 3, so much more reasonable, and really, really good. I went to see Richard Herring as well at the Town Hall, I think. No, Concert Hall it's called, isn't it? In Reading, which I've never been to before, which is a bit weird because I've lived here for quite a lot of my life and gone to quite a lot of comedy at the other venues in Reading, but not there. It was a bit sad to see a not full, quite small venue for someone who used to be on the telly. And having seen Stuart Lee, his sort of former sort of double act partner, in the Hexagon not long before, he's definitely the one who's still got the success. But Richard was really good. It was a show called Can I Have My Ball Back? Partly about the fact that he's had testicular cancer. But it was surprisingly upbeat. And we've had a couple of those now because we went with Craig to see Ed Byrne fairly recently. And his show was about the death of his brother. So all in all, it's cheery comedy all round. But yeah, so we've had a really good time. Anything else from you, James?
I was going to say, just recapping some of your points, Josh, I think if I was going to pay £200 to £300 for a meal, I would want a very fussy service. I'd want a free massage and some bit of karaoke and maybe some inappropriate touching for £300. But being only pay for a set price, it's not too bad. I was also going to say, with the two of us on this extremely famous podcast, it'd be interesting to see which one of us turns out to be Herring and which one's Lee in a few years' time. Which one is going to continue to be incredibly famous and which one is going to fall back into the gutter and have half-empty podcast listens in the future. So there we go. So yeah, congratulations on a busy month. Ours wasn't massively busy. Joshua's been quite busy. He's got his mock SATs this week. So we had his first mock SAT today. SATs are the standard attainment targets, thingies, standard attainment tests. Something to do with tests and standards and attainment. So he's having a SATs breakfast all week, so he gets to go to school an hour early so he can practice over breakfast with toast. And then he gets to do his SATs. So he's done some spelling and grammar today, and he's doing a bit of maths tomorrow. So the first ever proper tests. So hopefully he does well, and hopefully he doesn't panic too much. I never really minded tests. I used to quite enjoy them. Don't know how you found it. Did you enjoy tests?
Yeah, I'm a crammer, so I kind of like the thrill of the last minute rushing around, desperately panicking about ruining my future life chances. It's yeah, sort of double-edged sword, but I was always quite good at them, which I guess helped after you get a bit of sort of positive feedback after the first one. I suppose you fear them a bit less and enjoy the
Yeah.
adrenaline. So I like adrenaline. Remind you you're alive, doesn't it?
Adrenaline's fine unless you can start to feel it running down your leg, in which case it's probably gone a bit too far. Talking about birthdays, Joshua went to a birthday party yesterday and did a VR experience in Faction, which is about 20 minutes from us. So there's 8 children, and they go in and do VR stuff involving shooting monsters and shooting each other on teams and individually. Loved it. So yeah, had a great time doing the VR yesterday. They were shooting some spiders and monsters, and it was quite bloody and gory. And they said the monsters were naked, which is a bit strange. So we'll come on to our come on to a game that involves scary monsters later on. But yeah, he enjoyed it, had a good time, did quite well, and they all had individual stats coming out at the end of it, which we got sent as parents to see how well our children got on. So I recommend that one. In Faction, quite cheap, very very quiet on Mother's Day yesterday. So he was one of the only groups there. So they had a nice time. Yeah, I was also going to mention AI, wasn't I? I was going to mention AI because so you would have noticed on our social media or our social channels that we've had a little bit of a rebrand, predominantly because I was bored one night and was typing in random prompts into different AI free packages to see what popped out. So some were awful. I was typing similar prompts into lots of different websites, and some were very poor, crappy graphics and rubbishy little logos, and some were really cool. So on about the 87th attempt, we generated one that looked okay. And I sent it to Giles, and Giles said, yeah, it looks okay. However, I'm quite anal, so therefore, can you change this little bit and that 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 bit? And that font is half a point size bigger than that font to do all that. So we went back and did all that, and then it turned out quite nice, and I quite like the new logo. So check out our social media if you want to see the new logo. And if you're watching the video, or if you're on our podcast, you'll probably see the logo in the top corner. And it's quite nice. I love this in whizzy bits of lightning strikes and all kinds of crap I was doing with AI. Great fun. So that's the good side of AI, like it. But then the negative side of AI, annoyingly, possibly as a consequence of doing AI stuff, our Facebook page, Rates the Game, suddenly turned into a farm of awful AI rubbish. So Giles mentioned a while ago that there was a kitten working at McDonald's on AI, and that was quite cute. So I looked at that video because he told me to. And since then, my entire feed has been full of AI garbage. Randomly, muchly related to animals being covered in barnacles and rescue teams scraping barnacles or setting fire to barnacles or rescuing animals, lassie-like, that have come to help rescue another friendly animal who's been tied up in some cage. Ridiculous. And it got me thinking, like in a film studio where you pitch lots of ideas, apparently with AI, every idea that gets pitched is, I've got an idea, let's have a cute animal, what should we do? Let's cover it in barnacles. Okay, that makes no sense at all. Let's go with it anyway. Let's get a rescue team full of old bearded men who look completely different every 2 seconds for some reason. And let's remove the barnacles in some way. Sometimes even a whale with like a crane or a digger on its back, and the digger runs along scraping the barnacles. I think, what on earth is this? And fascinatingly, in the comments, some people are all over it saying, oh, you people do such great work, amen, and all that stuff. And you're like, you can't seriously think that there's a digger on top of a whale in the ocean clearing barnacles and setting fire to foxes with. So there we go. So the two sides of AI, really useful in some ways, horrific in other ways, completely destroyed my Facebook feed. But my recommendation was, if you're on social media, don't search for AI, animals, barnacles, because then the rest of your life is spent looking at barnacles being removed from animals by awful people in farm papers.
Hopefully it doesn't work from listening to someone talking about those things, otherwise we just cursed our listeners. So apologies, listeners.
I can guarantee these days that it will have cursed everyone now.
It will, yeah.
It's listening. Everyone's listening. Mark Zuckerberg is listening to us and for filling your field of barnacles as we speak.
Let's move on to something hopefully more wholesome. Anything you'd recommend that you've been watching recently, James?
We've gone back to a program called The Resident.
Okay.
Used to be years ago, and then stopped being on TV, or so we thought. It's like many things. We thought the series ends and it never got made again. But it turns out it just appeared on a streaming service and you have to pay money for it instead. So The Resident was on years ago. We used to love it. It's about a hospital, as you can imagine, with a resident. He starts off teaching someone else, and then they become friends, and then lots of japes over a few series, and then it disappeared. And now it's come back. His wife somehow crashed their car and died in the first episode, which kind of wrecks it a bit because she was quite pleasant. But it's good. Nice to be back after a sort of 3-year break thinking it didn't exist anymore. And loads of programs are saying we found loads of programs recently that still existed without us knowing about it. So we've got back into lots more old stuff, which is nice. And one other little recommendation, I don't know if you've seen it, Giles, it was called Last One Laughing.
We've seen the first episode only yesterday. So what did you think?
Because I saw it advertised on Jonathan Ross show or somewhere where they had a Daisy May Cooper on it, didn't she? And she was talking about it at some stage. Weird. It's meant to be on an island, wasn't it? Because John Bishop was talking about the Irish version being very amusing. And the concept is, as Giles knows, but the listeners might not, is that there's 10-ish comedians that are put in like a Big Brother house for 6 hours, and the aim is to try not to laugh. So the comedians try and make other people laugh in the house, and if someone's caught laughing on camera, they get a yellow card, and if they're caught laughing twice, they get a red card, and they're eliminated from the game. And each episode is meant to be an hour long, 6 hours, 6 episodes. Last one laughing is the one who wins, and they get a trophy at the end of it. It's weird, interesting, partly amusing in part. Some of the comedians are quite funny. Got like old comedians like Bob Mortimer, and you got some newer ones. You got Richard Ayoade, who's very deadpan and probably will never laugh, so that's quite interesting. And Joe Lycett's on there. A few other bits and pieces. Enjoyed it. Bit weird. Probably watch the next one, see what it's like. And yeah, if you like comedy and if you like strange things, then give it a watch. And Jimmy Carr presents it or hosts it. So yeah, what do you think of it?
I thought it was funny, but it is strange if the principle is, and this is the point they go on about it, that they're naturally they're sort of used to people laughing at them, and their whole job is making people laugh. So it's kind of strange when no one's laughing. But I think they keep cutting to Jimmy and Roisin Conaty.
Yeah.
Roisin. Yeah, is in the other room, and I think they kind of cut away to them laughing just to sort of make it feel a bit less weird. That it is funny, you're allowed to laugh a lot. I'm looking forward to maybe getting into it a bit more. I think it might be one of those things that kind of grows on you. So definitely give it another go. Anyway. In terms of what we were watching, a couple of things to recommend. We watched the Agatha Christie 3-parter, which was Towards Zero. Classic Sunday night drama, and some of the scenes in the sort of below stairs, old-fashioned house where you've got the servants and stuff. Some of those were filmed in a place called Tintsfield, where we'd been the afternoon of the first episode, so that was also a bit strange. But beyond that, it was just, I think, a really good Agatha Christie. It was a sort of strange setup that a dying or elderly lady invites her sort of potential inheritors to her house on an island or by an island. Although it's slightly strange that one of them turns up with their current wife and their ex-wife, which is probably unadvisable. And it was just a really good little 3-part thriller. So I would recommend that one. Speaking of very good, White Lotus. We're now on Now TV, watching series 3. Did you watch either of the previous series?
No, I saw a thingy talk about it on Jonathan Ross. What was it,
Emmy Lou someone.
Not Cooper, is it?
Yes, no.
Yeah. Talk about her teeth on Jonathan Ross. That's the only reason I know. I
saw the clip and I thought that was really harsh, actually. She took it very well and sort of responded. She's obviously used to being asked about them. They are extremely prominent if you've not seen her. Yeah. She has very, very prominent front teeth. But yes, Stephen Fry, I think, was asking, wasn't he, about her teeth, and was she annoyed at people always talking about them? Which, if she'd have said yes, would have been a bit awkward, even for someone. Yeah. Even someone as sort of charming as Stephen Fry could be, but luckily she said no, she's okay with it, and it's a really good show. If you haven't seen the first 2 series, they're on now. They're on Now TV at the moment as well, or I think it's HBO in the States or most places. The White Lotus itself is it's a sort of chain of kind of posh hotels, resorts. First series was based in Hawaii, I'm going to say, Honolulu possibly. Second was in Sicily, and this one's in Thailand. And it usually sort of focuses on the, rich rich sort of customers, not necessarily nice people, complicated and usually quite sort of, they'll have some mysteries to them, or they'll have some secrets that they're trying to kind of keep to themselves, and this one is definitely no exception. I won't go into any spoilers, but we're not quite up to speed anyway. But it's really well written. It's really interesting. Characters are pretty much universally horrible, except the staff are always kind of nice and interesting. So there's enough people to not want you to turn off the TV, because it's worth a watch. I'd really recommend it, James, if you ever get an LTV month in the future.
Cool, will do. Thank you very much, Charles. I was going to watch anyway because of Thingy with the Teeth being on What's It, so yeah.
Anyway, right, we've talked a lot. It's game time, as they say.
Yeah.
Let's talk games. And shall we start with our game of the month? Lost Records, Bloom and Rage. Tape 1, technically, which I'll keep trying to remind myself because it's second part's coming out in a bit, isn't it? But what did you think?
Yeah, so we've both been looking forward to it for a long time, haven't we? Since we saw the trailers, like a few months ago, we've been talking about it a few times. It looked quite vibey, didn't it? It had a nice nostalgic 90s vibe to it, we believed. And obviously we were almost at our peak in the 90s, although I said last month I still don't think I've peaked yet. I'm still waiting for the peak to come. Back in the 90s we were young and agile and virile and full of beans and zim and zest. So we were hoping it's going to be lots of 90s songs and a soundtrack and a big 90s vibe, but it actually started off quite slow. I think we both thought it started off quite slow. So you start off, you're a girl. Can't remember what she's called anymore because I played it a few weeks ago. Swan. She's called Swan with two N's. And it starts off with her in a car park talking to her mum on the phone. And that bit is very slow. You have a conversation with your mum, and then you slowly get out of the car, slowly walk to the bar, and then you slowly meet up with a friend in the bar who you knew 30 years ago when you were young. And you were kind of a bit of an outcast back then. You didn't have many friends, and then you met up with some people during a day out filming some stuff for a little cute documentary you were making, and then the people that you meet turn out to be really good friends because of their shared experience. And then it told you all about that summer and how they went on adventures and how they found a nice little hut somewhere in the middle of the woods and made it their own and decorated it and spent time on the beach and sort of discovered the world and each other during that summer. But somehow there's a bit of a dark undertone because for some reason they haven't spoken at all for the last 30 years. And it kind of alludes to it in the first tape, but it doesn't make it perfectly clear, although it might be the bit that happens at the end that is a reason. Anyway, so generally, good game. I like the graphics. I like the characters. There's like a quite gothy character who liked playing guitar and was a bit sort of strangely socially awkward, but quite sort of cool. There's another one who's quite serious, very intense, and there was another one who is kind of a bit cooler, sort of friendly, a bit more well-rounded, called Autumn. So you could kind of think back to people in the 90s that you went to school with or worked with and associated with characters. So that was quite nice. And like I said, it had a really nice vibe to it. Some of the background songs were quite nice. The environment was good. It sort of reminded you of when you were going through the 90s and sort of discovering yourself and building friendships for life and all that kind of jazz. So it was nice to play through. Wasn't much action in it. You had a few choices at different times, so like what your cat was called and how you decorated certain things, but it didn't really have any massive impact on the game. It kind of felt a bit like a walking simulator sometimes. You're just sort of going places and doing things that the game told you to do without really having much input. But got a bit lively towards the end, got a bit odder, went a little bit supernatural, had a bit of an incident disaster towards the end of it, which kind of livened it up a bit. But lots of it was just talking, sitting, looking at people, listening to things, doing things, and filming lots of weird stuff on your video camera. Like you have to film like 20 different species of birds and some species of animals and lots of bits of graffiti just to achieve different challenges. So interesting, well put together, good graphics, good casting, enjoyed the voice acting, enjoyed the vibe of it, but it wasn't massively exciting. That was it, really.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I was really disappointed, if I'm honest. I was really looking forward to it. It wasn't a bad game. It wasn't a bad experience. But just based on what I'd seen in the trailers and before release, and based on being a big fan of Life is Strange, who it's by Don't Nod, so the same team. I was really looking forward to it. It just didn't really click with me, unfortunately, and pretty much the whole time through. It did improve, definitely. Yeah. I really liked the sort of atmosphere, the setting. There was lots of nostalgia in there for me, like you said, James. I think they mentioned the X-Files. They had a Dark Crystal video lying around, and there's sort of video transitions and things definitely were well done. But literally at one point, it said press square to reminisce, which made me chuckle a little bit. So I reminisced by pressing square, and it went off on a story about the past. And also there was a nice bit where, I don't know if you found a video game cartridge at one point, that if you picked up the video game cartridge in their little rehearsal area, you could press a button to blow into it to clear it, so you could put it back in whatever fake N64 was in front of you. I agreed it was really slow to get going. Also thought it felt a bit clunky in places, but the characters were really sort of interesting, and that kind of kept me involved. The little pivot to something spooky came at just the right time for me. I wrote down a little note to myself, which was, feels like they've read a lot of Stephen King, and they went from Stand By Me and then into the more sort of supernatural side of his work. And then literally in the voiceover, one of the characters said, "Oh, it's gone from Stand By Me to a bit Blair Witch." So nearly the same. Yeah, mystery was kind of intriguing, but I got a bit annoyed because nothing really felt like it paid off. But again, got to remind myself that this is tape one, that there's a second half of the game, and it did end on I think a really strong note. But yeah, overall, I think it was the mechanics that just didn't grab me, even compared to Life is Strange or Tell Me Why, I think was another of their games. Similar sorts of games usually just feel a bit more interactive. And I didn't find the videoing stuff, camcordering stuff, that interesting. Yeah, it felt like a story I was watching rather than shaping, which I thought was a bit sad. Agree with you about the music, though. Agree with you about the setting. And despite all that, I wondered, would you play Take Two when it comes out? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I enjoyed the ending. I enjoyed the story. I'll quite happily watch the next one. They're not long games, are they? It's only like, what was it, 5-6 hours maybe to crack through the first one. So assuming the next one's the same length, there's no extra money if you got the first one. The second part comes free. It would do on Game Pass anyway, or PS Plus, whatever it was on. And yeah, I'd like to see how it ends now that you've got some kind of investment in the characters. Just to see if it becomes a bit more exciting, because it's going in a more exciting direction and then kind of stops. So it'd be nice to see how it continues in the second one. And what did keep them apart for 30 years and how the adventure continues, whether it's more about the past or whether it goes back to the present and they have a different adventure. So yeah, I'm up for it. The interesting part, though, there wasn't really any positive male characters in it. It was kind of it's definitely, I don't know if it aimed at females or just happened to be focused on females, but the only male character you really see in it was the barman, who's okay but doesn't really contribute anything to the story, and a guy who turns out to be a bully, who's someone's sort of sister's boyfriend, who turns out and just sort of shoves people around and says bad things, and it seems to be a bit of a knob. So it's very much focused on these group of girls discovering themselves, and whether it's different if you're playing it from a female perspective, because you would have probably lived through those moments. It might have been a bit more alien to us, but I enjoyed it. Just wasn't quite as exciting as expected.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. I think for Life is Strange, the main characters were all female, so I kind of felt like, again, it was a sort of fair comparison, but thinking about it, the cast was much more fleshed out in that game. So yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe I just didn't find someone I could really connect to. James, what else have you been playing?
Quite a few things. It's the first month for a long time I've managed to finish a few games, which is nice. Obviously, I finished Bloom and Rage from start to finish. Didn't take too long, so yeah, partially enjoyable. And the other two things, I finished off Hellblade. I think I mentioned in the last episode that I was going towards the final boss, and you alluded to the fact it was going to be incredibly hard, and then it wasn't, and I was a bit underwhelmed because you sold it and it wasn't that hard. I have moved it down to easy to make it a bit easier to play for it, but it was fine. The ending was obviously really weird, as you'd expect, and the rest of the game is really weird as well. So in the end, the whole game's about mental health, really. It's not about something that's physically happening to her. It's something that is only happening in her mind, in her own psyche. So that's kind of the fascination of the whole game. And in the end, you think she's dead, and then she's not dead, and then she thinks she's fallen apart mentally, and then she's not. And all very interesting. So I like the ending. Bit different. And then I also liked afterwards you get to see a little making of video it's nice to see how much effort they put into the mental health side of things. So they had people who suffer with psychosis coming in for months on end to give their views on different parts of the game and to try and convey how it felt and sounds and looks to them as people who suffer with the disorder, and how it comes across in the game to try and give that impression. We mentioned before about wearing headphones for the binaural sound, and that gives a little feeling of voice in your head, which gives you a tiny idea of what it might be like to suffer with that kind of thing. And also some of the visuals, sort of some of the tunnel vision, some of the glowing lights, some of the fact that you focus on little things and think they have a massive significance in the world when in reality it's only significant in your own head. So that was really interesting. I thought it kind of set the game in a different light for me afterwards, looking at the video of how it was made and how it was actually really sympathetic to someone with psychosis. So great game. Well, I thoroughly recommend it. I will try the second one at some stage, although I know it's a very different type of game. But yeah, I really enjoyed that one. So that was one of my favourite games for the last few years. So that was my one finish. And then my other finish was Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Still an awful title, still a great game. Yeah, I know. So I know we've talked about it a lot in the past, but yeah, me and Sarah played through it together and got to the end. And the whole thing was just a jolly, epic movie adventure, really, wasn't it? It was like being in a movie that's never been written and you were playing the lead role. So really good. Again, graphically, I thought it was perfectly good. Some people moan about the graphics, but I thought they were perfectly pleasant. The voice acting was really good. It sounded like Indiana Jones from the olden days. It looked like Indiana Jones from the olden days. The story was very much an original Indiana Jones type adventure, over the top, a bit silly in places, comedic in parts, and just a giant storyline in movie format. So the ending was good. Lots of good set pieces, lots of things you don't expect to see. Won't give too much away in case people still haven't played it, because it's only just coming out on the PlayStation soon, I believe. So good luck on that one if you've not played it yet. But yeah, we both really enjoyed the game. There's a few annoying little parts. I found it really hard to pick stuff up and put stuff down. That really irritated me. So every now and again, you'd try to fight someone, you end up just with a camera in your hand, waving it around. And you're like, I don't want to hold a camera. Let me put the camera down. And then for some reason, every time you walked through a door or climbed the ladder or went for a little thing, the weapon you were holding just fell out of your hand. And you're like, that's really annoying. It didn't seem to be any way of putting it away in your pocket or anything. I was like, So there we go. Apart from that, really good game. And apart from the other main character, who was called Gina, 90% of the time, quite liked her. 10% of the time, couldn't stand her. So there's a big sequence towards the end. Obviously, the whole thing's about Nazis, as you know. That's not really a spoiler, because it's an Indiana Jones film. They're always about Nazis. But there's this big scene where you're trying to creep around and avoid some Nazis. But for some reason, Gina keeps just running up to Nazis and sort of shouting at them to attract your attention. I'm like, we're trying to get away from the Nazis. What are you doing, crazy lady? So for a good half an hour, me and Sarah were hating Gina because she kept annoying Nazis and getting us killed. Very annoying. There you go. Apart from that, great game. Nice ending. Really enjoyed it. What was your view, Stu?
Well, when I saw your note about Gina, I was going to go full Will Smith on you and, get my wife's name out of your mouth. Because I thought she was great. I thought she was a really good companion, up there with Marion from a couple of the films. But now I see what you mean. It's more sort of her forthrightness with Nazis when you're trying to sneak around. No, glad you enjoyed it. And like you said, coming to PlayStation 5 in the next couple of weeks, I think. So expect it to get a big boost of players. I haven't finished anything apart from Lost Records this month. I've had a pretty intense month all in. So I've really enjoyed my time back on those Lonely Mountains Snow Riders, which I mentioned last month. Very chill game, very peaceful. The soundtrack is pretty much the wind kind of whistling through the trees or over the snow. It's very, very relaxing, apart from the fact that you constantly crashing and having to reset, but for some reason it's still kind of charming and I quite like it. I've unlocked all the 3 mountains that are available now. There's a 4th one coming through free DLC, which is pretty cool, so looking forward to that. And just impressed by the amount of variety that they've managed to put into it in terms of the different locations, because they're all snowy mountains, but they all feel quite different. You get 4 slopes on each. You have blue and black runs on each of those, and you have various challenges. So you want to get down the mountain quickly or without crashing very many times, or quickly and without crashing very many times, which is quite a challenge, but very satisfying when you do. And yeah, just highly recommend it. You can there's lots of multiple routes to go down, so it really feels like that sort of sense of exploration. Helps you shave some time off your times, but also just feels like you're genuinely kind of exploring a mountain and the joys of winter sports without the broken limbs. So highly recommend it. I haven't tried the multiplayer. Not sure I'm that bothered to try the multiplayer. I quite like it. It's in the title, Lonely Mountains. Don't want to be surrounded by people. That's part of the appeal.
All about the isolation.
Yeah. Anything else you've been playing this month?
Yeah, two things. Football Manager 24 I mentioned last month and the month before. I've managed to get Reading second in the Premier League now, and we also won the Europa League and the FA Cup. So yeah, all over it. So, and they've just expanded the select car leasing stadium to 40,000. So I'm very happy with that one. So really moving in the right direction with our new owner Jack Power. Who's a lot better than Die Young though. It was awful. So there we go. So hopefully that will turn into reality at some stage in the next 5 years. We shall see. But good fun. And I've also finally cracked open my Christmas present from my father-in-law, Silent Hill 2. And I've played about 2 hours of that one so far. I played a little bit with Sarah, and Sarah found it the most disturbing game she'd ever seen, so she gave up on it and doesn't want to play it anymore. That's not a shame. But roughly speaking, I'll talk about Silent Hill for 4.5 minutes. So it's an old game. It involves a main character called James, which is always a good name for a main character, I find. And he received a letter from his dead wife, who was called Mary, in her handwriting saying, I'm something to do with I'm at our special place in Silent Hill. And I was like, that's really weird. She's been dead 3 years. But I'll go and check out anyway, as obviously you would do after 3 years. Your spouse had died and you buried her. You would then go off to a knackered old place you used to visit occasionally to see if you could find her. So he turns up at Silent Hill, and it's not the nicest of places, disappointingly. So he turns up there, there's a roadblock in the middle of the road, so you can't drive in it. So instead of going, oh, that's an awful place, let's go home again, he gets out of the car, goes around a side track for a graveyard, meets a random woman who said, there's something wrong with this town, it's not just a fog. So for those who haven't played the original, the whole place is full of fog, it's just fog everywhere. So you have figures creep out of you in the fog to make it a bit more atmospheric. And she said, there's something wrong with the place, it's not just a fog. Which I'm assuming means she was talking about the fact that the entire place is abandoned, completely battered. There's massive holes in the road. Everything's covered in grim scaffolding. And there's lots of monsters that come and vomit on your face. So I'm assuming that's what she was referring to, but she could have probably mentioned it in a bit more detail. So you carry on through this road, and it gets annoying at first because you get on this new map. You pick up a map from a little map stall, and it shows you all the roads you go down. And then every road you try to get down, it turns out there's a massive sheet wall in front of you, so you can't get past it. And I'm like, this is really weird. I've been every possible direction now. I can't get past these sheet walls. And then, obviously, in the end, you work out you have to creep along a side passage through someone's house and back garden. And then you get into the next part and see the first monster. And Sarah found the monsters very creepy. And they were very creepy. Yeah. So weirdly, the first type of monster you meet is like a big sort of gooey human-looking thing that sort of looks like it's been stitched up. It's wearing a thong for some reason. And then it's got stitching all down the middle. So it's like its head's been stitched to its body. So he can't get its arms down, it's sort of just wriggling around towards you. And then to attack you, it vomits acid at your face. So you kind of creep up to it with your big stick with nails in the end of it and whack him around the head a bit. But then after you've whacked him like 3 times, they'd vomit in your face and you'd lose health. So you have to jump out of the way to avoid the radioactive vomit. So that's a pretty fascinating start. There's also some weird spiders on the floor that come running at you, so you whack them with a wooden stick as well. But there's a bit of stealth, a bit of adventure. You smash windows so you can get into properties. You find clues. You find little bits you put together to go through different parts of the map. And as you go through the map, it ticks off different bits you've completed that bar or that shop. Puts a cross on place you can't physically get into. And you're meant to just walk through this adventure looking for your dead wife. So I'm really enjoying it so far. Like I said, it is really foggy, but the graphics are really good. I've not met any other characters yet that don't vomit repeatedly in my face, which is annoying. Obviously, in real life, you'd probably avoid a place where people just kept vomiting at you and it had been abandoned for years. But this bloke, James, is so desperate to see his dead wife that he's going to plough through regardless. And I'm with him for that. And fair play to my namesake, James. So I'll continue to play that and see how it goes and report back more next month, but without Sarah's input because she hates it.
Yeah, I can kind of see why she might not be a huge fan. It sort of sounds like late 90s trips to Wetherspoons. Sort of strange-looking characters vomiting everywhere, and a sort of sense of impending dread. So yeah, I mean, it might still be the case. I've not been to one for a while,
But you can pick up syringes and stab yourself with them to restore your health. So that's another nice dynamic.
there you go. Again,
So like in The Last of Us, where you put those random bandages in random places and that somehow cures you. At least this one, you stick a syringe in your arm and it mops up all the blood from you somehow. Interestingly, though, a nice dynamic, or a nice mechanic, should I say, mechanic dynamic, is on the controller. You can see your health because on the DualSense controller, the lights change colour depending on how unwell you are. So
that's cool.
The more unwell you are, the controller goes red. You get a red zigzag around the screen, and there's lots of blood over the back of your jacket. If you inject yourself, you go back to being green, the blood disappears, and you don't have a ring. So, yeah, fascinating. Great game.
Excellent. Yeah, my last one was Avowed. I'm plugging my way through that one as an action adventure, first or third person RPG. It looks beautiful. It starts off with a brilliant cinematic. The Living Lands, which is the area you are in the world of Eora, is colourful. It feels massive, despite being allegedly quite a small game. We'll come back to that. And I'm really enjoying it. There's a really good sense of discovery. It's quite lore deep. If you want to read everything, you're going to be there for a long time. There's sort of ancient history, a bit like Tolkien and Middle Earth. You can read about the sort of history that this character who's left a book lying around through the ages. If you want to do that, you can. Otherwise, it's completely not relevant to the story or sort of, essential to the story, sorry. You're an envoy from a rich nation, which everyone else resents that nation. So you're sort of up against it, being sent to this area, which is infested by a plague called the Dream Scourge, I think. So it's a classic setup. A couple of things that stand out for me, real sense of adventure. You unlock the map. It's sort of fogged off at the start, and where you've walked will be fog free. So more fog from the Silent Hill previous entry that we talked about. You clear bits of the map, but then obviously there's still quite a lot that you can't see. So rather than unlocking a whole area, you literally just literally see where you've walked. So that always gives you a sense of, I wonder what's around that corner. And the way the game's designed is there's usually is something quite interesting around those corners. So it's sort of very easy to get sidetracked, and in a very sort of natural and very sort of creative way. They're very good at getting you interested in side stories. You don't feel like you're sort of veering off course. You just feel like you're veering towards something that's happening. For example, I took a bounty on a troll that was up in some mountains outside the main city in the first area. Went up there, stumbled across a big ancient sort of underground shrine thing, which had its own little story. Met someone who had kind of lost their party down there, their sort of exploration party. Found a kind of crazy religious zealot worshipping a massive shrine in there. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Finally did that. Got a rare weapon for my troubles. Went on, found the troll, dealt with the troll. On my way back, there was someone who was a farmer who had been sold a really terrible piece of land that he couldn't farm, and he wanted my input. And so in this sort of quest to do a side quest, which was just a bounty to take down this troll, I'd found 3 and actually maybe even a few more little stories along the way. So, what I would say, it's sold as a short game. I'm now probably 20-something hours in the second area. So that annoys me because that was one of the whole reasons I was keen to play it, was it was a shorter RPG. There's 4 areas, so I'm kind of in it for the long run now, unfortunately. Yeah. So hopefully I won't be talking about that for the next 3 or 4 months. But enjoying it. Avowed on Game Pass.
But compared to a 100-hour game, it might be quite short.
I guess that's it. It's like incest, all relative.
And I was also going to say, I do enjoy a good bounty, but it's annoying when a coconut gets stuck in your teeth.
Very good. Right, shall we move on that note?
Okay. Yeah.
In terms of news this month, I just thought it was worth mentioning, now that we've just mentioned about Avowed, and we've been quite vocal in our championing of shorter experiences and shorter games. I always get listeners, I always get this look on James's face as I'm trying to segue into a new section, which is like, where are you going with this?
Why are you going there?
But you never know. I felt that one was all right.
Yeah, it's good. Very good. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, pat myself on the back. But yeah, there's been a couple of articles that I just thought were interesting, talking about Atomfall and how that is, according to Polygon, an achievement in cutting to the chase. So I know that's a game that we're looking forward to, and I think we might even come back to. And Firebreak was another one, which is from the geniuses at Control. No, at Remedy, who made Control, and who made Alan Wake, and who made Quantum Break, which is very underrated on Xbox. And it's a service game, so it's a multiplayer game. It's a 3-player co-op, but it's Kotaku did a whole article about how it is a co-op for people who have a life and kids and jobs. And so I don't know if either of those maybe would appeal to us, James, with our stated ambition of playing some shorter games.
Yeah, I do have a life and I do have a job and kids.
Yeah,
so
and kids.
Yeah, triple threat, me. So yeah, Atomfall I've been looking forward to anyway. That does look really good and really gorgeous in a British type way. Well, English type way, really, and it's Cheshire. Or, yeah, the other one sounds good. I've not seen that at all, but that sounds fun. Well, you mentioned it. There have been rave reviews of Split Fiction, isn't there, this month? That's another, obviously, couch co-op from the people who made the other game that we played that we both loved, which I've just forgotten.
It Takes Two.
Great game. So yeah, everything I've read about that one and seen the reviews, it sounds awesome. So I'm very much looking forward to that one coming down in price or appearing on a subscription service so we can play that with Joshua at some stage. And if not, I might have to get it for his birthday at the end of May. So we should see. So yeah, love a good co-op anyway.
Nice. And we won't be short of things to play, will we? Because even just on the subscription services, there's quite a few things coming out in the next few weeks before we record next, certainly. Were there a few things that you wanted to pull out, James? I think you'd mentioned in the notes.
I'll cover them briefly. Atomfall we've already covered. It's sort of a survival type horror type thingy. There's been some kind of incident in there up in the Lake District, and they've got exclusion zones and sort of different factions of people who want you to believe their way of thinking towards a certain goal, and depending on who you decide to help, you get different ways of playing the game, but they generally involve killing some people and not being killed. So that sounds quite fun, and obviously the bonus of that one is there's lots of British type stuff and Britishness and British accents, which is quite fun. We're used to playing American style video games all the time, so that sounds quite fun. South of Midnight we've already talked about, haven't we, in the past? That sounds like an excellent RPG type thingy set in the fictional Deep South, and it's got a bit of mystery and a bit of magic and a bit of spirituality in there as well, so that's sounding really good, and it's got a really good story. That's certainly another contender for our game of the month that we might be playing. There's a couple of others we've not talked about. So we've mentioned in the past about Sensible Soccer in the past, what you should play on my Amiga, and Sensible World of Soccer, and then there was that Cannon fodder by the same people, weren't there, that had a similar kind of graphics and spirit to it. So what I didn't realise is John Hare, who made the original Sensible Soccer, still makes games, and they're called Sociable Soccer. And they've been mildly popular in different formats, but they come into Xbox Game Pass, Sociable Soccer 25, in April, so in a couple of weeks' time, or less than that. And it's meant to be more arcadey, a bit more fun, a bit more easier to access, but it's fully licensed, so they've got like 13,000 licenses from the UK and across Europe. So there's proper teams, proper thingies, proper championships. There's 80 like online tournaments you can take part in. And it's meant to be really easily accessible, and the graphics are fine, but not amazing. The gameplay is simple, so fairly realistic, but not ridiculously hard to get into. So it sounds pretty fun. And I'd be happy to relive my days of Sensible Soccer. I think it used to be really fun game. So definitely looking forward to seeing that one, especially being it's free. There's a fun game called Blank Space, which is coming on Game Pass soon. It's been out on Steam for a few years now, but it sounds fun. Purely on the premise that you wake up not knowing how you got there. You're tied to a post somewhere, and there's a woman next to you. You can't remember your night before, who she is and how you got there. So between you, you're meant to be figuring out, in a sort of escape room puzzle type format, how you got there, where you're going to, who you are, and where you're trying to get to, and why you're attached to a pipe. So that just piques my interest. The reviews are really good. It's like 92% on Steam from about 80 odd reviews, so it sounds fun and looks quite short. So it's sort of a point and click, choose a story type adventure. So that sounds quite fun. And the last one on my little list is a game called Autopsy Simulator. Love a simulation game. Love an autopsy. Who doesn't like a good autopsy? And this one is about you're a coroner, so you're doing autopsies, and then one victim or one patient or one cadaver. What do you call dead people and been autopsy? Who knows? You find a mystery about your past in the body somehow. So it's meant to be a quite realistic and fairly gory and graphic, and you find out things about your past that have laid dormant for years whilst you're cutting patients apart, or victims, or cadavers. So that sounds fascinating as well. All coming on Game Pass for free, obviously, in the next 2 weeks. So lots of things to play on the Xbox. And the only one that seems to be of interest on the PlayStation, which you can talk about, is RoboCop Rogue City.
Yes, yeah, I'm excited about that one because I was hovering over the buy button during a recent sale for RoboCop. It has had some really good reviews. Apparently, it looks great. It certainly does from the trailer. But one of the guys at Digital Foundry raved about it being just a really great example of a kind of AA, sort of again good length, action packed, very faithful to the license. I've after Indiana Jones in particular, I'm sort of really up for playing my way through another sort of classic movie franchise. So that sounds ideal, and I'm looking forward to that one a lot.
And similar to Indiana Jones, it's a new story, so it's not one of the originals, and it's set between RoboCop 2 and RoboCop 3, so it's in that time period, like the Indiana Jones one, and also features the voice acting of the original actor who played RoboCop in the first one. So,
Peter Weller.
Yeah,
can't wait for that. Claire Obscure as well, remember, is coming Expedition 33 before the next episode. So there's literally no chance that we would play anywhere near all of these when they come out, and probably no chance we've managed to get to them this year. But that's a lot of great games.
One more really good game that's coming out the 10th of April.
Yeah, because that is our game of the month, isn't it? Very good, James. Thank you. Which is Blueprints. So cannot wait for this one because this feels really. I mean, I shouldn't say this because I'm pretty sure I said this about Lost Records, but this feels exactly my sort of thing. It's a first-person puzzle strategy game. It says, filled with a unique mix of mystery, strategy, and puzzles that weave together to create an unpredictable journey. I think we talked about it last month in the sense that you have inherited or set to inherit a sort of mansion from one of your relatives, but the twist is that you need to find the mysterious room 46 to sort of get your inheritance. And a couple of people who've had early access to this really just hugely positive. Jason Schreier, who writes a lot of kind of investigative reporting for gaming, I'm pretty sure it was him or Stephen Toledo, one of the two who has said, it is already a strong contender for their game of the month, and has got his hooks right into him. So I'm very much looking forward to that one. You looking forward to Blueprints, James?
Yeah, it sounds really weird. So it sounds like you can go for a door and decide what's behind the door. That's how it ties in with blueprints and blueprints. So you can make some permanent amendments to the manor, which then appear the next day, but everything else resets itself at dawn. So everything you've done, when it gets to midnight and dawn comes, it all resets itself and looks completely different the next day. So you're meant to make some permanent amendments to the blueprints and then eventually find your way to, like Giles says, room 46. So it does sound really interesting. It's not a description you've heard much before. Sort of an architectural strategy puzzle game. So it sounds really interesting. And I like the pun on blueprints and blueprints. So for those reasons alone, worth playing. And I think it's on both subscription services, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's one of they've had a couple before, I think. This came up in another podcast I was listening to. I think Sea of Stars, which is a sort of retro RPG, was on both. And there's a couple coming up as well. I mentioned Firebreak from Remedy. That's going to be on both as well. So it seems to be a bit more common. But yeah, it's great news. If you're listening and you've only got one of the two subscriptions, you can still join in this month because that is our game of the month, Blueprint. And we will report back in 4-ish weeks' time, I guess.
Yeah. Probably the first Friday of the month.
Probably, yeah. Excellent. Well, it looks like we did remember to insert this bit about the Switch 2. So hot off the press, just coming off its reveal earlier today in the UK, and in time for Friday's episode, we thought we would give our quick reactions. We got quite a full-on presentation. There was about an hour's worth of content. But James, what's your kind of high-level thoughts? Should we start with the system itself?
Yeah, I think better than expected, actually. I think. And obviously we heard some rumors, we talked about it a bit in the past, didn't we? But they seem to be good. I found the technical specifications are a bit lacking so far. I didn't mention much about the processor or the internal bits and pieces, but obviously the screen's bigger. It's not an OLED screen, so that's a bit disappointing. It's an LCD for the first iteration, so that's probably one negative. But it does show in 1080p, which is nice for the actual screen. And if you put it into the deck, then it goes to 4K, which is nice. And it supports HDR in both situations as well, which is nice. It's a bit bigger than it was before, so a bit of extra inchage, which is always nice for bigger games, I suppose. Obviously, lots more onboard memory, so that's something like, used to be 32, didn't know it's 256 gigabytes in storage. That's really good. 2 USB-C ports. It's got some funky features. 120 frames per second, which is nice. Much better than the old one. So yeah, lots of good bits to it. And that's excluding the new features, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a sec.
Yeah, I think it feels like a real upgrade, doesn't it? It's basically, here's the Switch. It was really successful. Lots of people bought it. Here's just a better, newer version. So, like you said, the screen difference actually is huge, really. I've got the original model, so the old first version, which was a LCD screen. It was 6.2 inches, and this one's 7.9. So I think the OLED was somewhere in the middle. It was about 7. So when you look at that as a diagonal, that's actually quite a lot more screen real estate. And I thought, I've never used, I think I tried to use it once, the Switch in that like tabletop mode where you kind of prop it up or put it on the put it on its stand and then try and play as two people. The old Switch, the screen was tiny, so that didn't work. They've also made some of the buttons bigger, which for us grown-ups with reasonably sized hands, I think that's going to be a big improvement. And I echo what you said. The only thing I'd add is that the Joy-Cons being magnetic, which we did know about before today, but the Joy-Cons being magnetic is going to save a lot of fiddling around with different sort of switches, little catches and stuff. And I don't know if you remember, or if you ever did it, there were lots of stories of people catching their finger in the mechanism of the Joy-Cons. So this will be much easier, just popping it off there. For any of our video listeners, James is having some real video camera problems at the moment. So for our audio listeners, I was bravely trying to soldier on, but I think you're there now, James, aren't you?
Everything's fine, yeah. Always fine.
You mentioned extra features or new features. Anything else on the system itself? Quite funky little tricks on the Joy-Cons, aren't there?
Yeah, you just mentioned the Joy-Cons. Obviously, you can use either one as a mouse by laying it flat down, but you can use it for the types of games that are useful for using a mouse. Can't think of that many of them without a keyboard, but there are some that are good for mouses and clicking through sort of adventure-type games, which a few have been announced of. So yeah, nice feature. However, how often you'd use it is a mystery, but yeah. So in terms of the tech, pretty good all around, I think.
Yeah, I think they demonstrated Metroid Prime 4 using it as a sort of first-person shooter mode. And I know lots of PC players will go on about how much better keyboard and mouse is. This would be controller and mouse, I guess. Controller for your direction in one hand and then using the mouse for aiming and shooting. So, yeah, that'll be a big plus. Anything else, James? There's
a couple of cool features. It was the game chat and the game share, wasn't it? They both had the word game in it and they both had some other short words next to it. So there's a C button, isn't there, that you can press on the Joy-Con and on the console, I think. And you can do some chatty stuff. So it looks quite fun. They also sell a separate video camera, so you can sort of do your face on the screen while you're playing games together. So you can play separate games and have your face in the middle of it, or you can play the same game and have your face in the middle of it if you want to, which is quite fun for interactivity and chatting along while you're playing games. Good for people who like podcasts and listen to things while they're playing with their friends. So yeah, good. I like that feature. I think one of the games announced was Split Fiction is coming on launch as well. So that kind of chatting thing through with a co-op type game would be quite good, I think. So that's good. And James Share, you can share games, as the name would suggest. So yeah, I think you can share them up to like 4 different people on different systems. So you have one physical copy of the game and you can play with your friends cooperatively on up to 4 systems using just one copy of the game. I believe that's what it sounded like when I skipped through it earlier, so hopefully it's accurate. If you're going to buy one, don't buy it based on that recommendation alone, because that might be complete leather rubbish. But it sounded good on the video I watched.
Indeed. Don't sue us, everybody. But being able to show your face and see each other's really interesting. And it's interesting it's Nintendo, who I would have thought are quite sort of cautious about online stuff in general, and a lot of their customers are younger, so it'd be interesting what sort of security they put on that, because I imagine that one could be misused, unfortunately.
Yeah. And also all the backwards compatibility stuff as well. It's always been a big feature mentioned before, and it's going to have a massive back catalogue of games you can play. Some games are going to play perfectly. Some games have a Switch 2 edition, where potentially you pay a few extra quid and you get a much improved version, like we did with the PS4, PS5 type stuff. And some have a few minor issues on it as well. I think I mentioned Alan Wake was going to be on there, but had a few minor issues, but was backwards compatible apart from that. So yeah, lots of good things. So lots of good bits. What do you think of the price?
Expensive, but then everything is, isn't it? These days, I think that's an interesting point. I mean, I noticed you had to pay to upgrade, and I think that's Nintendo have been very good at getting sort of additional money out of people buying or rebuying the same games for years, as Sony's doing now. The price of the console, I mean, it's probably not expensive realistically when you think of all the components involved and how prices are, and with the risk of tariffs. I mean, we record today on the 2nd of April. Who knows what prices will be like on the 3rd? But I think it's just interesting now if you compare that price to, say, a digital PS5 or the Series S in particular, as a kind of entry level into what really is kind of the same generation. It is the portability and the flexibility of the Switch, which is the selling point. But they're no longer the cheap option, I would say.
So it looks like $395 for the base unit, and then maybe $429 with that, plus the Mario Kart World, or whatever it's called. Yeah, Mario Kart World, it's called that. So
that's the one.
Not horrifically cheap, but again, like Charles said, not horrifically expensive compared to some of the other bits. And obviously they sold 150 million of the first Switch. So there's a massive market out there that have been waiting 8 years for some new and exciting from Nintendo. So I guess if you really want one, you're going to pay the 400 quid and crack on.
Indeed. Just before we get to the games and then we'll wrap up, the only other thing I noticed, the addition of GameCube stuff to Nintendo Switch Online, exclusive to the Switch 2, was interesting. My first reaction was, I feel like they've ported every single GameCube game they could to the Switch itself, but then turns out no, because they brought out Wind Waker, which I think will be a big selling point for that service. So I know that's a lot of people. It's in their top Zelda games, and I never played it, so I would be curious on that if I were to jump in, which I'm not sure I will at launch. In terms of the games, any sort of highlights that stood out, any themes, just before we wrap up?
Yeah, there's a few third-party stuff, wasn't there? Obviously, we mentioned Mario Kart World already, which is a massive, big one that they're using to sell it. There's no other like Mario type game come out. There's no new Zelda game announced, so not a lot of that kind of stuff. We mentioned Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Street Fighter 6 sounds good. That'd be nice to see that on there as well. Elden Ring's coming over. There's Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is obviously another traditional big Nintendo franchise. And other stuff, third-party stuff like Cyberpunk. It's nice to see Cyberpunk 2077 being able to be played on a Switch, which obviously is nowhere near at the moment. So obviously shows the leap in technology that games like Cyberpunk can be shown on there. I've alluded to Split Fiction just a minute ago. That's the massively reviewed game at the moment, so that's the kind of thing you can sit on a Switch and play together with a friend or family member, sharing the access to the license. That's cool. Final Fantasy VII, there's loads of fun stuff on it, whether they be as good as the PS5 or the Xbox Series X version, or whether they get their own special bits. Who knows? But not much in terms of exclusives, apart from the ones you'd expect to be exclusive in terms of Donkey Kong and the Mario Kart game. But you?
Yeah, no, I think you've probably mentioned them. I think the those big hitters from the third parties, Elden Ring, Cyberpunk, and Final Fantasy VII, those are big gets for the system, and just show that we're looking at a lot of the games really from kind of this generation of the home consoles, but the ones that Switch had really no chance of running, those will be, I'm sure, massive on the system. Although again, it's sort of question who it's going to appeal to. Those are very sort of mainstream, quite older, darker games. So that'll be interesting. And then, I just noticed Donkey Kong. I thought it looked really fun. Sorry, Kirby, I've got no interest in you. But no Mario, no sort of Mario platformer. New Mario Kart looked good, but interesting, like you said, no Mario and no Zelda. Good point. So the last mainstream Mario game, Super Mario Odyssey, was a launch title, I think, for the Switch, or certainly back in the early days. So that's years and years that team have been working on something. So I'm sure we'll see it eventually. But overall, I thought there was quite a lot to be interested in. Too much for a working day, so that was a bit annoying. Too much for a 10-minute slot, so we've gone a few minutes over. But in general, quite impressed. Still not convinced. I don't feel I'm desperate for it. How about you, James?
No, I very rarely feel desperate for anything these days at my age. But like I said, the big third-party games coming over, we've got them all already on the PlayStation and the Xbox, so there's no excitement to watch them on a Switch, particularly on a small screen. I'm not a massive fan of doing things on a small screen. I like them big and bold and beautiful. And the Nintendo exclusives, I've never been particularly thrilled about. Mario Kart's always been fine for a bit of fun with friends, but it wouldn't be something that I'd be going, wow, another Mario Kart game that we play that on my own at home on a tiny screen. So no, nothing outstanding for me. And it gives the existing users something new to look forward to. But for me, having already owned the Series X and the PlayStation 5, there's not much in there that would jump out as forcing me to spend 400 quid on day one. If it comes to like 150 quid in 5 years' time, I might pick one up. But yeah, not yet.
Yeah, and Nintendo hardware notoriously manages to keep its value many years on, so that might not happen. But that's we're maybe not the target audience, but we'll have another chance to talk Nintendo because we're going to reflect on our relationship with Nintendo, our memories of the previous systems. Might look ahead again to anything we've forgotten about today on the new Switch. Talk a bit more maybe about if and why we might change our minds on the new console. What would get us to do that? So keep an eye out for that on our feed, hopefully somewhere in the middle of the month. And I think with that, we'll probably hand back to our previous, slightly differently dressed selves, in my case.
Yes, exactly the same dress as my case.
And with that in mind, I think that's probably the show, isn't it, James?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind giving a couple of shout-outs to Maddie and Scotty, who are currently in Rome, celebrating their 25th anniversary. So I hope they have a lovely time. Hope the weather's nice. Hope all the monuments are as attractive and impressive as you expect them to be. And I hope they come back still on talking terms and have a great time. So, yeah. Maddie's going to miss a football match annoyingly, but apart from that, good luck to them. Hope it's great. And also, we have a new listener this month. And I should have written the name of the person down. I was hoping you'll be able to look it up and edit it back in afterwards. So I WhatsApped it to you, didn't I? I said I was so excited I thought you had a new listener who said they were catching up on all our podcasts and they're going through it in order. And if we gave him a shout out, he'd probably hear it in a few weeks' time when we caught up. So it may be that he got bored on episode 2 and gave up completely, in which case he won't hear this at all. Or it may be that Giles will rapidly start typing things in and come up with his name in a second, in which case I'll refer back to it shortly. But I can't not mention him because he actually sent a message and said he was listening, which is great. Also, while we're waiting, wanted to shout out to the Veteran Gamers podcast, who shouted out this last month. They're free gamers of a similar age who talk similar things, but they do it for a lot longer. They have a weekly podcast, and it lasts about 2.5 hours per podcast, which is crazy. Don't know where they find the time for that one, but they talk about similar stuff and often talk about similar games, but they swear a lot more, and it's a lot more rambling, and they have some random sound effects. So if you like that kind of thing and don't have enough of us wibbling away for an hour a month, feel free to check out those as well. And I know Giles listens to some gaming podcasts as well, so if you want to shout those out while we're here.
Yeah, well, firstly, I'm a good host, James. So I remember that Fraser Moores is the name that you're thinking of.
Awesome.
So welcome, Fraser. We've had a few new listeners over the last few months, which is good. We welcome, obviously, long-time listeners returning. We appreciate you, but it's always nice to have new people join the fold. Yeah, and I was just going to say 1 hour, one decision. I think it's called 1H1D, where they use the Surprise Me random generator in Game Pass to choose a game to play for an hour, and they'll decide if they're going to keep playing it. Lightweights, we play for 4, so but no, they're really good, they're really funny, worryingly slick and professional, and very much worth a listen. That's very much a bite-sized podcast, so about sort of 30 to 35 minutes. It's what we pretend we are, but then we always look at the clock at the end of these episodes and realise that we've gone on far longer than intended. Now, check them out if you've got time, but obviously if you've only got time for one podcast every month, that'll be Aches and Games dropping first Friday of the month.
And a big shout out to my wife, Sarah, who has finally got through about 5 episodes, so she's only just under a year behind now, so she's catching up rapidly. And if she keeps on the same pace, she'll be up to date by about.
Excellent. Well, that's the show. Please remember to like and subscribe to the podcast. Consider giving us a 5-star review. That really helps. Pushes us up those searches, and it just makes us feel kind of good about ourselves, which is always a nice thing to do, isn't it? There's enough terror and misery in the world. We'd also appreciate a follow, and feel free to interact with us on Threads, most social platforms. We're at Aches and Games, Facebook page, Aches and Games, or by emailing achesandgamespod@gmail.com. I'm Giles Nicholson. How about you, James?
I was going to say, if you do contact us on social media or email, we will shout you out on the pod. We might not remember your name, and Giles might have to look it up, but we will get there eventually. So please do reach out. We love hearing from you, as Giles said. Yeah, that's it for me. I'm starting a new roster at work tomorrow, so we're going to be loads and loads and loads more early starts and more late finishes. So it's going to be tough to squeeze the gaming and everything else in, but I should give it a go. And obviously, I've peaked this month for 3 finishes, so hopefully I'll continue with Silent Hill and Blueprints and those other 15 games we're looking forward to, and hopefully survive somehow the month of April. And enjoy Easter for everyone who celebrates that kind of thing. And yeah, see you all this time next month. Or in the Easter holidays for the special. Don't forget the special. Thank you. Good night.
Sounds good. Take care, everyone. See you next month. First Friday of the month for more Aches and Games. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.